Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Today I will offer an update on the case of Kelsey Fitzsimmons. First, I'll look at the background of this case, move to the timeline of the incident, then offer my analysis. Kelsey Erin Fitzsimmons was born on November 18, 1996, and lived in the state of Massachusetts. She was raised in Methuen by her father Stephen and her mother Lauren. In 2015, Kelsey graduated from high school. While she was attending college, she worked as a waitress and a security guard. After graduating with a bachelor's degree in criminal justice in 2020, Kelsey went to law school. She dropped out and took a job as a correctional officer. Kelsey purchased a house in North Andover, Massachusetts in June 2023. In September 2023, she became romantically involved with a firefighter named Justin Olayan. Later, Justin moved into Kelsey's house. The couple became engaged, and Kelsey had a son named Caden on February 16, 2025. By this point, Kelsey had changed jobs. She had been working for about 9 months as a police officer for the North Andover Police Department. Her gun permit was suspended after she allegedly became aggressive in her house and was diagnosed with postpartum depression. Later, the permit was reinstated, and Kelsey was scheduled to return to work as a police officer on July 1, 2025. Her first shift was scheduled for July 4. As it turns out, this glorious return to police work would never happen. Now moving to the timeline of the incident. On June 30, 2025, Kelsey's fiancé Justin filed an abuse prevention order against her. This is known as a 209A restraining order in Massachusetts. He claimed that Kelsey had become intoxicated at a party in Maine 2 days earlier. She allegedly struck him multiple times and made threats concerning their son Caden. At 6:02 p.m. on the same day the restraining order was issued, June 30, 3 police officers, Sean Daly, Timothy Houston, and Patrick Noonan, showed up at Kelsey's house to serve her with the order. Their plan was to seize Kelsey's firearms and remove Caden from her custody and give him to Justin. During the visit, Patrick Noonan shot Kelsey with his 9mm service pistol while she was in an upstairs bedroom. He claimed that she pointed her pistol at him. Kelsey was severely injured, but survived. She spent 53 days in the hospital. On August 25, 2025, about 2 months after the shooting, Kelsey Fitzsimmons was indicted on a single count of assault by means of a dangerous weapon. She admitted that she retrieved a pistol in her bedroom, but claimed her intent was to bring an end to her own life. She never pointed the weapon at Patrick Noonan. No body camera was recorded during the incident, so this case mostly came down to Patrick's word against Kelsey's word. On March 23, 2026, Kelsey went on trial. She waived her right to a jury trial so a judge would decide her fate. Several people testified, but I will focus on the 2 key witnesses, Patrick and Kelsey. I will start with a summary of Patrick Noonan's testimony. Patrick said that when he and the other 2 officers arrived at Kelsey's house on June 30, 2025, he noticed that her vehicle was parked 450 feet away. The officers entered the house and explained to Kelsey that there was a restraining order. She would be able to tell her side of the story at a court hearing in 2 weeks. They were required to take her son and her firearms away. Kelsey lied and indicated that her firearms were stored in the basement. She went upstairs to her son's room to pack various items. Patrick followed her, and they both entered that room. Kelsey handed him a baby seat and asked him to take it downstairs. He put it on the floor and said, "We will deal with that later." At this point, Kelsey started packing books in a round basket. Patrick explained to her that there was no need to do this. She would see her son again in 2 weeks. Kelsey handed him the basket and asked him to take it downstairs. Patrick once again said, "We will deal with that later." Kelsey stated that she needed clothes from her bedroom. She walked across the landing at the top of the stairs and entered her bedroom. Patrick did not enter the bedroom with her. Rather, he stood on the landing right next to the doorframe. Even though he was not standing in the room, he was still only about 3 feet away from Kelsey. As Kelsey was down on her right knee, wrapping up clothing, she started to shake. Patrick reassured her that 2 weeks would go by quickly. At this point, Kelsey pushed off on her left leg and lunged behind the doorframe, moving to Patrick's left. She reappeared with a pistol, pointed it at Patrick's face, and pulled the trigger. The weapon did not discharge. Kelsey moved backward away from Patrick and either racked the slide of her weapon or attempted to rack the slide. Her hand may have slipped off the slide. It seemed clear that Kelsey was trying to chamber a round. Patrick yelled, "Don't do it, don't do it." At this point, Kelsey racked the slide again and started to bring her right arm up. Patrick responded by firing 2 rounds. The first round missed. The second round struck Kelsey in her chest. She moved backward, fell to the floor, and was incapacitated. Under cross-examination, Patrick admitted that he may have called Kelsey a whack job when speaking to a neighbor after the shooting. Now moving to the testimony of Kelsey Fitzsimmons. On the day of the shooting, Kelsey attended a 1-hour CPR training, which was the last step she needed to complete before returning to work as a police officer. She and Justin had arranged to meet at a park that afternoon. Again, Justin was her fiancé. Kelsey waited at the park for about an hour, but he never showed up. She returned home, parking quite a distance from her house because she did not want people to know she was home. Kelsey was sad and confused. She called her mother to come over, which her mother did. 3 minutes after her mother left Kelsey's house, the police showed up. The officers, who Kelsey knew personally because they worked at the same police department as her, informed her about the restraining order. At this point, Kelsey had several thoughts going through her mind. For example, Justin just broke up with her using a restraining order. She was losing her son for 2 weeks. She was losing her dog because the animal was listed on the restraining order. Ultimately, she would probably lose her job and house due to the impact of the order. This was overwhelming to Kelsey, and she decided to bring an end to her own life. This is why she lied about the location of her firearms. Again, she said they were in the basement. She did not want the police to take them away. She did not want the police to prevent her from following through with her plan. Sean Daly asked her to pack a bag for Caden, which is why Kelsey walked upstairs. Both Patrick Noonan and Timothy Houston followed her up there. Kelsey repeatedly tried to get the officers to leave her alone by handing them things to take downstairs. She was looking for an opportunity to make her exit from this world. Kelsey was not interested in harming anyone else. Eventually, Timothy walked downstairs. Patrick also started to walk down the steps. Kelsey knew this because she could hear him. She realized this was her chance. Kelsey retrieved her pistol from her bedroom and pointed it toward her own head. Right at this moment, Patrick walked in on her. He must have come back up the steps. Kelsey said blank, which rhymes with duck, then pulled the trigger. Her weapon did not discharge, but she still ended up getting shot because Patrick fired his weapon. Kelsey insisted that she never pointed her weapon at Patrick at any point during the confrontation. The judge believed that both Patrick and Kelsey were credible witnesses, which created reasonable doubt. On March 26, 2026, Kelsey Fitzsimmons was found not guilty. Now moving to my analysis. Kelsey Fitzsimmons maintains her innocence, and she was found not guilty by the judge. Some of her supporters have suggested there was a conspiracy against her. The state, of course, disagrees. They believe the judge delivered the wrong verdict. This brings me to the question, with all the available evidence now presented at trial, was Kelsey actually guilty, despite the verdict of not guilty? Let's take a look at the evidence both for and against the idea that she was guilty, starting with the inculpatory factors. Under Kelsey's story, Patrick left her alone in her bedroom for a moment. Would he have really done that while serving a restraining order to a person known to have firearms? Patrick claimed that Kelsey pointed her weapon at him and pulled the trigger. Under Kelsey's story, she had the pistol pointed at her own head when she pulled the trigger. Her weapon did not fire. This leaves 3 possibilities. Kelsey lied about pulling the trigger, her weapon malfunctioned, or there was no cartridge in the chamber. When her pistol was recovered, a cartridge was found in the chamber. So if she had pulled the trigger, the weapon should have discharged. Therefore, either Kelsey was lying, the weapon malfunctioned, or a cartridge was chambered after the trigger pull, like by one of the officers at the scene. Modern semi-automatic pistols rarely malfunction. If her pistol did malfunction, it is very likely that an examination of the weapon would have identified a problem. It's possible that one of the officers who handled the gun after the incident manually cycled the action to chamber a round, but that would have been a career-ending move if they were caught. Tampering with evidence or lying about the state of a shooting scene would be criminal. This leaves only one remaining explanation. Kelsey was lying. Moving to the exculpatory factors, Kelsey denied pointing her pistol at the police officer. The only witness against her, Patrick, had an incentive to lie if he had conducted a questionable shooting. Kelsey repeatedly attempted to get the officers to leave her alone in the bedroom, which is consistent with her story that her intent was to harm herself and no one else. When considering all the evidence in this case, do I believe that Kelsey was guilty? In my opinion, the judge made the right decision. Kelsey was not guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. This is the same conclusion I reached prior to the trial when I made my first video about this case. But watching the trial did lead me to change my mind about one element. Initially, I believed that Patrick Noonan panicked when he saw Kelsey with her gun. This is why he shot her. Now I believe that Patrick was telling the truth. Kelsey pointed the weapon at him. This means that I believe Kelsey was guilty in reality, even though she was not guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. One key piece of evidence was that cartridge being found in the chamber of her pistol. There was no good explanation for that outside an unlikely conspiracy. Now moving to my final thoughts. One of the strangest elements in this case is how, if Kelsey was telling the truth, Patrick saved her life by shooting her in the chest. She complained about getting shot, as many people in her situation would, but without the shooting, Kelsey would be dead. Again, she was trying to bring an end to her own life when Patrick shot her. Even if Kelsey lied and she had actually pointed the weapon at Patrick, he still probably saved her life. If he failed to shoot her in self-defense, Kelsey would have shot him. The other officers would have responded upstairs and shot Kelsey. As far as Kelsey's legacy, some people view her as a hero who exposed corruption in the North Andover Police Department. I think a more accurate legacy is that Kelsey is irrational. She endangered everyone in her house by retrieving her weapon. Kelsey is no hero. Rather, she is an erratic former police officer who benefited from the lack of body camera video during a tense confrontation that she caused. Those are my thoughts on the case of Kelsey Fitzsimmons. Thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to you soon.